Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raptor Queens podcast, the first ever all-woman podcast covering the Toronto Raptors. My name is Sarah Khalil, and I am here with my other queens of the North, Sonali Sharma and Allison Hope. Welcome to all our listeners. We're so glad you're here. Today, we're going to be covering quite a lot of exciting Raptors developments. It's been a while since we last recorded. The Raptors have played 7 games, including a win against the Wizards, a loss against the Celtics and the Timberwolves, 2 back-to-back wins against the Bucks, followed by a win against the Timberwolves, and then a win tonight against the 76ers, which is a 4-game win streak for the Raptors, the first 4-game win streak of the season. And for the first time this season, the Raptors are above 500, starting the season 2-8, and really putting together an excellent stretch over the last few games to claw their way back to a winning record. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. What do we think has been the reason for that run? And we're going to look at how the Raptors are stacking up against some of the best Eastern Conference teams. We're also going to take an in-depth look at Chris Boucher and his candidacy for Sixth Man and Most Improved Player. How is he stacking up against other players? What is the criteria? What do we think? What predictions do we have for Chris Boucher as a possible award winner for this season? Of course, we have our regular segments, King of the North and Court Jester of the Week. I'll get into that when we start that feature. We're going to look around the league. We've got the All-Star game happening. And before we get to that, we have tea time. There's some interesting things going on, some gossip, some comments being made by Shaq, Kevin Hart about our Raptors, and we'll look into that as well. So we're really happy to have you here, and we're going to start with a look at how the Raptors have been stacking up against some of the better Eastern Conference teams, in particular over the last week. So this last week has had quite a stretch against the top 2 teams in the East. Back-to-back wins against the Bucks, and then tonight, as I mentioned, a win against the 76ers. So we're going to start by looking at the game against the Bucks, and Allison is going to break it down for us. Go ahead, Allison.
Hi, everybody. This was a really good week. So we went in to the Milwaukee back to back. The Milwaukee was 17 and 10, I believe. So kind of not where we thought they would be, like looking at their record from last year. So we came out in the first game very active on defense, and we actually had 3 steals in the first 3 minutes. And it was very interesting to see Fred was kind of showing a bit of a mid-range game early. He had a couple of like short-range jumpers, and that's kind of a nice development to see rather than these contested drives into the paint. Um, but they kind of dug a hole with fouling in that first quarter, and the Bucks were in the penalty and shooting 7 minutes into the first quarter. And then at one point, we had 2 consecutive turnovers, and the offense really stalled at that point. Fred had a very nice strip on Giannis, and he was literally everywhere on defense. But in that quarter, they were really shooting cold from 3. In the second quarter, they were really pushing the pace from every Bucks miss. There was a spell where the Raptors missed shots, and Milwaukee was kind of hitting every time down the floor. There was an incredible sequence by Kyle Lowry. He actually got an offensive rebound between Brook Lopez and Giannis, and then he had a gorgeous pass to pass Antonio Davis in 4th place on the Raptors rebounding all time. So it's just amazing to think that a guy that's 6 feet tall, is out, able to secure a rebound over Giannis and one of the Lopez brothers. So at that point, they were tied at the half. And then Kyle had tweaked his ankle in the first half. And I think we were all holding our breath to see if he was going to be okay. He was good to go, came out and played in the third quarter. And it was kind of worrisome for me because Pascal was sort of settling for threes again, not really attacking. And then a couple plays later, Kyle looked like he twisted his ankle again. And he was done for the night, but we later found out that was more of a thumb injury. And, again, I'm thinking, okay, this is Fred's team to run now. And then the Raptors started attacking the rim in a very concerted way about halfway through the third quarter. and they were up at that point 86-81. I did notice, and this was one of the things we talked about with our DeAndre Bembry segment, his tendency to gamble. He had some bad judgment. He tried to gamble on a steal on Giannis, um, but he did redeem himself with just an excellent cut to the rim on the next possession down. And Pascal was doubled and made the pass, and he just had a gorgeous little chippy layup. There was and Chris Boucher, I think the coaches are probably working with him because there was a beautiful controlled closeout. Pat Connaughton was in the corner shooting a three, and Chris Boucher closed out. He didn't jump. He stayed down and he forced the miss. And Connaughton's pretty good from the corner. And like at this point, even Baines was rolling to the rim, which is sort of saying something. And it was a really strong third quarter. Um, OG was really playing well. It was nice to have him back. Norm at one point made a bad pass and then stole the ball right back on the next possession. And he also showed some really nice recognition. He had a drive into the paint, very much under control. And then he passed out of the paint to Chris Boucher in the corner for a three. So they had a 6 point lead at that point, 6 minutes left. Fred knocks down a huge three. Pascal was attacking, and Nick Nurse had a successful coach's challenge. And then with about 5 minutes left to go, he made a really smart call. He had uh, two back-to-back timeouts, so a nice tactical move when the team was looking quite tired at that point. They showed very nice composure down the stretch, and Chris Boucher had a great block in the last, like the closing minute of the fourth, and a nice run out by OG for a slam. So that was just a great game. And then looking at the second game, the Raptors started out attacking, and Bembry, man, that guy, total effort. He was scrapping on the floor for a loose ball. I mean, you have to love this guy's effort. Uh, yeah, OG was playing absolutely lockdown defense on Giannis. And I don't know if we're going to touch on like what's going on in Milwaukee later, but if you're a Milwaukee fan, you got to be a little bit worried. Um, Norm then had a huge sequence. He he was down like on the, kind of on this on the sideline and defending Chris Middleton, and he somehow got his hands on the ball and just ragdolled Chris Middleton and ended up forcing a jump ball. And then came back and hit two threes back to back. And he had 15 points in that first quarter. He was shooting 57% from the floor. And, if you're, again, if you're a Milwaukee fan, you've watched Norm, you know, beat you almost single handedly in the Eastern Conference semis a few years back. Like, there's got to be a lot of teams that are high on Norm. Um, Pascal was dishing some really nice assists in the second quarter. They were playing tenacious defense. And I noticed that they were forcing Milwaukee to initiate their offense very late in the clock. Like we're talking, getting into their sets and, attempting a shot with 5 seconds, 4 seconds left on the clock. So super late. And the Raptors had just great ball movement. Almost every one of their baskets was assisted. And the play-by-play guy, Matt Devlin, he had commented they had a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which is just that's a good ball. OG had a really nice shot block on Middleton, and he closed out and just basically blocked it right at the point of release, right as soon as it left his hands. And the Raps were up 58-41 at the half, and every Raptor but one had an assist. So great team ball. And they came out in the third, doubling Giannis at the elbow, like doubling him sort of before he got into the paint. Norm was just attacking relentlessly, and Siakam had a really nice assist to OG, and he got his reverse slam that he really seems to prefer. Then we gave up a 7-0 run. Fred nails a three, and then we went on a 16-5 run. So really showing a lot of resistance. And there was a really fun sequence there where Chris Boucher just ripped the ball out of Giannis's brother's hands, Thanasis. So the Raptors just answered Milwaukee's run like right back at them. And then in the fourth quarter, like Milwaukee was kind of curiously passive, some bad body language on that team. And I think this was the game where yeah, Giannis was in foul trouble and Bud sat him for I think probably 3 or 4 minutes into the 4th quarter, which was really odd. I mean, they need this game. So, another one of those odd choices. OG had a couple lovely baskets, just getting his own shot and creating off the dribble. And then Pascal finally gets a continuation foul against Giannis, and that was Giannis's 5th. And then he fouled out with that dirty, frustrated elbow to OG's mug. So all in all, I mean, I don't, I don't know. I don't think any of us predicted we were going to take both of these games. So I'm curious what you guys saw.
First, I thought we were going to
Mm.
win both these games. This is a classic F it, let's get both moment.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So it was interesting. Sonali, I'm curious what your take on this is. We had for the first time after, Twitter has been calling for it for a while. Aaron Baines didn't start, and we started small. The first game against Milwaukee, Kyle, Norm got to stay in the starter role. Fred, OG back from injury, and Pascal, which was awesome. And then in our second game against them, Kyle was injured, so Bembry got the start in his place. I'm curious what stood out to you about the small starting lineup.
Yeah, it works. I mean, going back to what Allison said about today's game is pretty fresh in my mind as well too, and just seeing Bembry out there, and like you said, Allison, like there's a lot of sort of I don't know, you guys, I'm thinking about like howler monkeys versus spider monkeys right now. And like spider monkeys are, I guess I'm thinking of like Aaron Baines and like the larger man, and he sort of just clogs up a lot of space in the paint. And then there's someone like DeAndre Bembry who, really sort of like fits himself where he needs to be defensively and that kind of thing. So I think it was a really smart move on Nick's part. And the other thing that sort of stands out to me, which I don't know if you ladies notice as well too, is like when Kyle is not present. So like, obviously Kyle he's gone right now because of his injury. For some reason, like Norm just like shines in those situations. And we saw this in last season as well too, when Kyle was out. And I find that I find it really interesting when Kyle is gone and then Norm's on fire kind of thing. So yeah, but I mean, Allison, you've given a really extensive overview of those games against the Bucks. It's a good feeling to beat the Bucks, and finally we're back to like we're 500. We're a 500 team. Like it just feels really good. I feel good.
Yeah, me too. And one of the things that's standing out to me is I think that part of the reason that we've seen this shift has been almost an embracing of who the Raptors are this year from Nick, and just the whole team, but really, really deciding and realizing who they are this year and leaning into that instead of trying to recreate who they were last year. And Aaron Baines simply cannot replicate the center position. And so to me, I think of this as almost like a recognition, okay, our most talented guys are small. They just are. And we're going to lean into that and see what we can create if we just run with what's right in front of us and not resist that as the identity. And so to me, I think that's a huge reason why the lineup is successful, is that there's not like it's not trying to be someone other than who you are. And I honestly, I've been waiting for this for a while. I'm really happy to see it, and kudos to Nick for leaning into it. And one of the other things that I notice is I think Baines is a much better player off the bench. I also think Baines is a much better player, or has better chemistry with Fred than he does Kyle. And I have wondered for a while, and can kind of pinpoint a play early on in the season where I just thought to myself, it's possible that Kyle hates Aaron Baines, or that something is going on because they just don't have good chemistry together. But coming off the bench, I see Aaron Baines just generally being a lot more comfortable, and I'm quite happy about this new development. Allison, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, the fact remains that we have a huge hole at center, and regardless of where Aaron Baines is, whether he starts or whether he comes off the bench, it's the same issue. And Chris Boucher is undersized for a center, so to me, there's still this problem that needs to be addressed. And whether it gets addressed this year, I don't know. This is certainly encouraging. We've now gone after a 2-8 start, I believe 14-7, and we're literally one of the hottest teams in the NBA. So having accomplished this with this gaping hole, and that probably sounds rude, but I mean that's factual. When you have your starting center playing 20 minutes a game and getting 0 or 5 points, and at one point along there, a game with no rebounds, that's not tenable. It's completely untenable. So, what are Masai and Bobby going to do with this? I think the Raptors have succeeded in spite of this, not because of it. So it's going to have to be addressed. It's kind of the elephant in the room.
Well, and I guess what I'm suggesting is that like how they address it is they just lean into small, because there's like until a trade is made, what will you do? You can't do anything.
Right. Yes. Granted. But I think we probably have consensus that something's going to have to be done at some point, whether they just let it play out this year or whether there's movement. It sounds like there's not a lot on the buyout market at this point. There was discussion about Drummond. I think I can't remember if we talked about that or not. So unless they can engineer some kind of blockbuster trade, I don't know, but yeah, this is super encouraging. Like I'm happy. Like 14-7 is great.
Yeah. Well, and like I just want to highlight again, I credit Nick Nurse to putting together these lineups and bringing out the best of what he has at this moment. And like, man, how badly do you think Milwaukee wishes they had Nick Nurse as their head coach?
Oh, if you're a Milwaukee fan, I think their Twitter was going crazy. And there was one particular woman that made some very rude remarks about one of the Raptors. I'll have to look up her handle. And I think she actually changed it because what she said was just so like vitriolic. But I don't think the Drew Holiday trade has yielded dividends yet. They've had some roster change this year, and they're certainly not where they thought they'd be. And again, there was some bad body language, and it just doesn't look like they're playing as a team. And Giannis looks like he's taken a step back with regard to his skills this year. So whatever she said was quite vitriolic, and I think a few of the Raptors fans on Twitter called her out on it. So I'm just not sure if the Drew Holiday trade has yielded dividends yet. I was sure that he was an upgrade over Eric Bledsoe, but it kind of doesn't look like it yet. And they're just sort of a very disjointed team. Their guards are, other than Drew Holiday, their guards are on the small size. They lack playmaking at that position. And it was quite formidable to have two Lopez brothers last year, but they only have one, and he's a year slower. So if you're a Milwaukee fan, you're probably not very happy. And then to see Norm Powell burn you yet again, you're probably like reaching for the antacids at this point.
Yeah. Okay. One other thing. So yes, I feel I actually saw an interesting article about whether or not Bud should be fired right now, and the article advocated to wait till the end of this season. And it was interesting. It was actually written by someone who covers the Bucks regularly. And the idea was like, okay, they should have fired him after the playoffs last year, but firing him right now would actually be a bad call, because what we're seeing right now is that Bud's trying something different, which is what everyone has been clamoring for him to do. It's currently not working, but this is the point in the season when you actually are supposed to experiment. So we'll see how the experiments go and if he can figure something out. And if they flame out again this year, then Bud has to be replaced. And if he's not, then I mean, Giannis might, quietly ask for a trade either way. I really feel like the other part for the Bucks is that Giannis is not developing as a player, and that would be my biggest concern if I was the GM for the Bucks.
You're right. He's actually taken a step back this year, like in terms of his numbers and definitely in terms of his shooting, and like this mental block with free throws. Um, and it's really unfortunate that a player, when he started out in the league, had a bad coach, Jason Kidd, followed up by another bad coach. It's kind of unfortunate in terms for his development, because you just wonder what he would be like on a team with a solid developmental program. Like, I'm just trying to think of a team who that would be. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Of course, I think he should have signed with the Raptors. But Sonali, you kind of touched on this. The Raptors playing without Kyle have an outstanding record over the last 2 seasons, and Norm steps up, Fred steps up. So I'm curious how you're feeling, just generally, about the takeover of this at some point becoming Fred's team. And he's signed on as a free agent, and I mean, personally, I feel like he's starting to look like a steal at the price we have him, because he's playing such outstanding basketball. But I'm curious what you think about the transition.
Yeah, it's like I have no doubts about like this being Fred's team. I mean, even after the episode we did with Louis Satzman, Sarah, we had talked a bit about sort of Pascal and Pascal's being sort of more of an emotional person, and whether he's the team leader. And when you look at Fred and you see what he's been doing in this last little stretch, like it's become more and more clear to me that he's just like the natural leader. And it's very exciting, and to see the sort of chemistry between on and off court. There's been a lot of Instagram posts, there's been a lot of things just showing Pascal, and then in the frame there's Freddie, and then there's Norman Powell in that frame as well too. It's almost like, yeah, like you see it happening, you see it developing, and that transition is just it's gonna happen. And I mean, similarly, like when Kawhi was leaving, I mean, we had the same kind of thoughts about the sort of leadership in terms of who was going to step up and who was going to fill in those shoes of Leonard. And yeah, I just see this team blossoming into like the steady Freddie team. So I'm very excited about it. I mean, although, don't get me wrong, I have an immense amount of respect for Kyle Lowry and what he has done for this team, but I also just, who knows what Kyle's future holds, and we've got to think of our sort of succession planning. As a wills and estates lawyer, I'm always thinking of what the succession is going to be.
Exactly. Allison, where do you stand?
Well, I have reservations about Fred's ability to lead, and even though I have immense respect for everything about him, for his achievements as an undrafted player, for his resilience and just his perseverance when everyone didn't believe in him, bet on himself. And his demeanor is, he's clearly an intelligent guy, and he's a hard worker. And I do notice that he's developing facets of his game. I mean, he pretty much never initiated the pick and roll in years past. And to be fair, he often played as the shooting guard when Kyle Lowry was the point guard. So he is initiating some of that now. And again, that the mid range, instead of those heavily contested drives into the paint, I think it was easy for teams to strategize for him, because he was going to drive into the paint and attempt to throw up a shot under the rim. Now he's kind of stepping out or stopping and taking a 10-footer, 12-footer. So drives to the rim are fine. Some drives to the rim are fine, when you're an undersized player, but not a consistent diet of it, because that's going to get sniffed out very easily. So I do see his game developing. I'm just not sure. And I often use the term dynamic. I don't see him as a dynamic point guard. He is a human flamethrower from distance. I will definitely concede that. He's probably one of the top 15 three-point shooting players in the league. But I just, I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm just not convinced of his ability to lead at an elite level. So
that's so interesting. I totally don't agree with you on that, Allison. And I also I'm looking back, remember what a remarkable job he did against defending Steph Curry in the finals. And I remember even Steve Kerr said something about Van Vliet, and it was kind of funny and cute in the moment. I think he kind of said at a press conference that ever since he's had a baby, his game has just improved phenomenally, and maybe there's a maturity that sort of came into him. But that's interesting.
Steve Kerr, by the way, I'm convinced, even when they were playing against the Raptors, Steve Kerr is a low-key Raptors fan.
I agree 100%. Completely.
100%.
Completely agree with you.
Right? He just thinks they're so great. I love Steve Kerr for loving the Raptors.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So Allison, I also think I agree with Sonali on this one. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I'm sure that what we're seeing this year is on purpose, and that Fred and Kyle are deliberately working on this succession plan, and Kyle's part of it. And not because that necessarily means Kyle's decided not to sign or whatever, just because Kyle is the kind of leader that you want, and that includes training your successor. So I don't know, I do not think we've seen the end of Fred VanVleet's development, and him leading us into the next generation of Raptors basketball. I love that he's developed a mid-range shot. I love that he's an icy cold player. I think it's going to be really cool to see where we go.
Yeah, he's going to be like the Mandalorian.
So the only thing I'm going to say is his minutes really have to be watched. I mean, he's putting up huge minutes, and with such defensive intensity, you just wonder if this is sustainable for the 72 games, because he's literally working his butt off every night.
Yeah, and on that note, we really need the bench to step up. Against the Bucks, the starters played heavy minutes. Timberwolves, last team in the league, and although they have actually, one of the smallest point differentials, so they're competing every game, we really needed the bench to actually do something on that second night of a back-to-back, and they were just flat. And so the starters have to come in and, win the game. And they did, and it's fine. But I do think there's a depth piece that's missing. And we just need more from the bench. To be fair, in that game, Kyle was sitting and OG was sitting. as part of his recovery. So we were already shorthanded. But anyway, let's move into the Sixers game today. So Raptors beat the Sixers, number one team in the East. Joel Embiid is having a monster season. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid seem to have figured out how to play with one another. And Philadelphia's record is reflecting this, I guess I'll call added maturity to their game. Made some good offseason moves. Seth Curry, Danny Green. Bring them on board. Matisse Thybulle's good. And the Sixers are a formidable opponent. And today the Raptors came out, started the game 22-8, down 22-8, before coming back on a 20-2 run to take the lead in the first quarter. 13 of those points were from Fred VanVleet. Oh, speaking of flamethrower, 4 for 4 from 3. And then, the Raptors win the game 110-103. Pascal has 23 points. Fred VanVleet has 23 points. Chris Boucher coming off the bench with some monster 3-pointers for a fourth quarter run, 17 points. Sonali, what stood out to you about this game?
Oh my gosh, bonjour is all I have to say. It was like a fourth quarter game. Even Nick Nurse after like in the post game interview that he did, he really attributed a lot of the game to Chris Boucher. Like I was just like, wow. But those threes that Freddie was throwing, like some of them, like one of them didn't make any sense at all. And it just like went right in. And I was like, wow, what is happening here? Like, it was just such a fun game to watch. And it was really fun to like listen to Jack Armstrong and Matt Devlin and just how excited they were. And this whole sort of notion of like the Raptors bandwagon jumpers and people who have jumped off the bandwagon and like, look now, this is the team that we really are. So it was incredible. And you're right, Sarah, it like, wow, Joel Embiid, like, I agree. He and Ben Simmons have really learned how to communicate and how to play, and it's really incredible. But what a victory! Like beating the top team in the NBA and the Eastern Conference right now. So yeah, I'm on a high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big win.
Oh yeah, and the one other key sort of standout for me was also just the glimpse of what kind of player DeAndre Bembry is going to be for this team, because tonight he had a fantastic performance as well too in his defensive play, and what a fun guy to watch too.
Absolutely, he's got great chemistry with almost every player on the team, which is great to see. Allison, what stood out to you?
Sarah, just before I forget, did you guys catch the play? I think it was in the third quarter, and Bembry went driving. I think it was transition, and Bembry went driving in, and he dumped off the ball to Baines underneath, and Baines like couldn't catch the ball.
Yeah,
like DeAndre Bembry is going to make a play. He's a guard. Well, he's a big guard, but I don't know how he didn't anticipate that pass. Like,
no, I did see that.
Yeah, I could feel you cringing. From across the country.
Yeah.
Literally.
It was
coast to coast cringe.
I kind of had a feeling there was a bigger disparity in fouls than there was, but I just looked at the box score and we had 24 personal fouls and Philly had 21, but it just seemed like they were shooting free throws. Like we must have been in the penalty for the whole fourth quarter. I don't know, because it seemed like, and that was a very difficult flow of the game to watch.
Yeah,
just with the constant whistles.
The difference between shooting fouls and non-shooting fouls, because the free throw shooting disparity was quite big.
Well, I will confess that I was in the car for the first half, and what struck me about that was the number of offensive rebounds that Philly seemed to have, say in the first half of that quarter. I want to say they had quite a few possessions with second and third chance points that they capitalized on. So I really wasn't able to see what the Raptors did. I don't know if they did more doubling or how they addressed that, but that really seemed to turn around. And that was a really I want to say it was a 17-0 run or something like that, and they pulled back even. And I just when this got down, like the Raptors played great D in the second half. I think they allowed was it 48 points and then 48 points in the second half, 19 in the fourth quarter. So just absolutely great defense. But the fouling, I think the free throw disparity was I want to say 35 free throws for Philly and 18 for us. So it was almost a factor of half. And the one foul on DeAndre Bembry, that certainly looked to me like potential for a flagrant on Simmons. I don't understand that call, how it turned into a technical on Simmons. In my mind, that was a clear flagrant one foul. I didn't see how Bembry fouled, but I mean, I guess I don't understand officiating. So it became very difficult to watch the game because it was just constant whistles. But Chris Boucher, lighting it up with his, I want to say 6 of 8 threes. He was just incredible. And I always think of Samson Folk when I see Chris Boucher shoot, because he has this expression that Boucher is slinging it like a gunslinger, I guess, because he does have kind of a slinging motion, right? He has an unconventional form. So I will say, I kind of wasn't sure if we were going to win this game or not, but Philly down the stretch, they just couldn't like seal the deal. They had opportunities to pull even with us, and they just kind of looked lackadaisical, and it just yeah, that was a weird last 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you how the Raptors came back in the first quarter, and to me, also the reason they won the game. And to me, it was because of Pascal Siakam's play. They started out in the first quarter looking weirdly intimidated. I mean, of course, Philadelphia is long, and Joel Embiid in the paint has the ability to alter a ton of shots. But it looked like the Raptors were altering their shots for him. Anticipating that he was going to come in to alter the shot or block the shot, and then doing it for him. Nick Nurse called a timeout, I think, at the right time. Philadelphia just gone on a 10-0 run. Nick Nurse called timeout, and Pascal Siakam started playing beautifully aggressive, smart basketball, and he kept them in the game offensively. And that was it. Like, yeah, he was, to me, kind of the anchor that brought the Raptors back into the game. He was playing wonderful in the paint, making smart decisions, good reads, and that was it. Also, Aaron Baines subbed in. We started small again with Bembry in the starting lineup with OG, and then Bembry was subbed on to help with some of the offensive rebounding and the guarding of Embiid. And so in this instance, despite the fact that Aaron Baines has moments when I just can't understand how he's a professional basketball player, his size was very helpful and made a big difference.
I think Bembry's going to become a real fan favorite. And not having watched it, that gives me a good idea what happened. And I've got to say, Pascal, his all around game, he's just improved so much. Like, he's playing such sound defensive basketball, and like helping, and he's, and the offensively, like, he's not forcing up threes all the time. Like, he has a nice variety to his game. So, after that crisis in confidence sort of at the beginning of the year, I think he's like really getting it together. Like, his future is very bright. Maybe he's not our number one option ever, but he's a very good ball player.
Absolutely. I feel like he's really rediscovered his game. And, your earlier comment in the Milwaukee game, being afraid that Pascal Siakam was, stepping back into the three and relying on the three ball too much. I think that has just shifted so much over the last couple weeks. And he is just playing smart, aggressive, interior basketball. It's great to see. It's just great to see.
Agreed.
All right. Well, so obviously one of the stars of this game was Chris Boucher coming in with those outstanding threes. Yeah, to take over the game in the fourth quarter. Let's move to our segment about Chris Boucher and the sixth man / most improved player possible candidacy for him. Allison, I know you have a breakdown for us about what both of those awards entail. So why don't you take us away?
So just looking at like historical most improved player versus sixth man of the year. And I was kind of thinking in my mind that Chris Boucher is maybe a candidate for one or the other, but sort of looking at the way the award is given out, the most improved player is going to players with like a couple of years ago. Pascal was most improved, and I think last year it was Brandon Ingram. So it's players who have like exponential improvement in a given year, whereas six man of the year, it's kind of a little bit more hazy than that. And the criteria for that is just more or less they have to come off the bench in more games than they start, and they don't really give more firm criteria than that. So Montrezl Harrell won it last year, and in the past, Jamal Crawford won it 3 times, and we all remember Lou Williams with the Raptors, and he's won it a couple of other times. So they're the only 3-time winners. So there's no clear numbers, a certain number of points, certain number of assists, or anything like that. Oh, I did take the liberty to read an article in The Athletic by Eric Wong, and he sort of highlighted the players that are sort of consensus as leaders for Sixth Man of the Year award. And he kind of looked at 2 players, and Jordan Clarkson was one of them, and he's with Utah. So I find it kind of confusing because there's a few Clarksons in the league, but Jordan has been in the league since 2014-15. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. He's been with the Lakers, with Cleveland, now with Utah. And well, I'll say this in a minute, but he's playing about 26 minutes a game. He's shooting 37% from 3, and he's a career 34% shooter. True rebounds for this year, career 3 a game. And he's averaging 18 points a game and career average of 15. So he's 3 points over his career average. So the other player near and dear to us is Chris Boucher. So he's, as we know, been in the league since 2017-18. G League MVP, I do believe. And he's been with the Raptors. He started out in Golden State Raptors since 2018-19. So his minutes have gone up from like minutes per game from 13 to 23 minutes a game, so significantly more playing time. So his 3-point shooting is 43%. That's up from 32% last year. His true rebounding percentage is 6 a game, up from 4.5. And his points per game have almost doubled from 6 points per game last year to 13. So if you consider that Chris Boucher is playing on a team that struggled out of the gate, was 2-8 to start with, and is only 16-15 now, and Jordan Clarkson has been with a team who's just rocking it in the Western Conference and is kind of rolling over opponents and playing very free-flowing offense, I think there's a pretty strong case here for Chris Boucher to be Sixth Man of the Year. And when you think about it, this is sort of another, if he wins this is another in a series of like prestigious awards that the Raptors have won in Masai Ujiri's tenure. So it's, this is another in the series of achievements for this team and for this franchise, and showing leadership and accomplishments, and another feather in the cap for Masai Ujiri in the leadership. So this is just really nice to see if Chris Boucher does indeed win Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah, I'm just looking at betting websites because why not? Chris Boucher is in third right now behind Jordan Clarkson and Eric Gordon in terms of best odds to win Sixth Man. And he's in fourth for most improved player behind Jeremy Grant, Christian Wood, Jaylen Brown. So he's certainly a contender at this point, and he absolutely deserves to be. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen enough from these other players, nor not only this year but in previous years to really know the merit of the other players. But I'm really happy that Chris Boucher is in the conversation. And okay, here's the question for each of you: if you had to guess which award he would win, and we are just making predictions at this point, which one do you think he would win?
I'm going to say sixth man.
Yeah, me too.
What do you think, Sarah?
I also think sixth man. I think the only question in my mind is, will he win both?
Well said.
But yeah, I can absolutely see him being a sixth man. Yeah, so I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah.
Thanks for that breakdown, Allison.
Yeah, make Serge and Serge and Mark proud.
Exactly. And just to our listeners, there was a really great article published about Chris Boucher this week, and I just want to direct your attention to it. It's called Wildest Dreams by Michael Grange, and it's published on Sportsnet, and it beautifully covers Chris Boucher's entire career from high school till now, and the incredible odds that he overcame to have the opportunities that he's having right now, because he was drafted to an NBA team before moving and working with the Raptors 905 to become the G League MVP and the G League Defensive Player in the Year, and work his way back into a Raptors rotation. And it's just really incredible. He's such a hard worker. It's a fantastic story. So if you have some time this week to read it, again, it's called Wildest Dreams by Michael Grange. In-depth look at Chris Boucher. Absolutely worth the read. So
yeah, and I just think that there's like a theme that has emerged from our podcast today, that just going back to the conversation around someone like Giannis, and just the sort of like, you know, the sort of like pause in his progression and his development. And then you see someone like Chris Boucher, and you see the kind of organization and franchise that the Raptors are, and the coaching, but then all the mentorship from Serge and from Marc Gasol. And it's just, I don't know, there's something really special about this team, and the fact that, like, you know, Nick Nurse can pick up these diamonds in the rough. And I said this last year too, like I'm really excited for Chris Boucher. And even like my heart was like beating for him when he started this last week as well too, coming from the being a part of the starting lineup. So I hope he gets the sixth man, and I hope he gets both of the awards, like you said, Sarah. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, the Raptors hands down have the best developmental organization in the league. It's so cool to watch. All right, so let's move into our next conversation. I am very curious who each of you are going to pick. It is our time for our regular King of the Week and Court Jester of the Week segment. If you're new, let me explain these segments to you. The King of the North is our award that each of us individually give to the Raptors player, coach, staff member, whoever we'd like to acknowledge for the week for being deserving of our acknowledgement. And the court jester of the week is either somebody who has not been playing very well and we just think it's kind of funny, but it's not, or somebody who's actually done something funny and we are going to get into right now. And Allison, why don't you start us off? Who's your King of the North this week?
I went with Norm Powell, and just looking back over the week, he had 22 points against Minnesota, and then the first Milwaukee game, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. The second game, 29 points, 4, 3, and 2. And I'm just reminded of a player from back in the 90s who played for the Pistons. He was their shooting guard, Vinnie Johnson, and his nickname was the microwave because he would just come in and it was just like instant power. And that's kind of how I think of Norm. He's like our Raptors version of Vinnie Johnson. He had kind of a cold night tonight, but I'm pretty confident that teams, when they do their pre-game planning, they plan for Norm. So even if he's not hitting, he's taking some of the pressure from other players on the team. So he had 11, 2 rebounds and an assist tonight. So all in all, and so you made me wonder with the comment about how well he plays. Who did you say? I know about Kyle. Who was the other player you said?
And it was Kyle Lowry. Yeah, that was that when he's not there.
Yeah, but there was someone else you mentioned, and I wonder like how the coaches parse it out. Like, is I don't know if correlation is causation, but I mean, looking at Norm's performance, it kind of makes you wonder. So I went with Norm.
Okay, wonderful. Sonali, who did you choose?
After that extensive shout out to We the Norm, I also chose Norman Powell, and I will not elaborate on anything else. Allison has covered everything.
I'm sorry, I'm too wordy tonight. It's been a long day.
No, it's totally fine. Oh man, can I give a king and an honorable mention?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna anonymously crown Norm as king. I think that he earned his way into the starting lineup, notwithstanding that OG returned. So, and like kicking Aaron Baines out. Yay! I kind of want to give it to Nick because I'm so happy that happened. But I'm giving it to Norm. Congratulations, Norm. And the other part about why is because I think that he is helping to shift the Raptors' identity into an offensive team as well as a defensive team, and I'm really excited about that development. So yay, Norm. And my honorable mention is going to Pascal Siakam because I'm thrilled that he has established himself as a premier player in this league again. Very happy for him.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next court jester of the week. Sonali, over to you as a starting point.
Okay, so my court jester has it has nothing to do with their ability to play. It's more just something that made me laugh and kind of spills over to like one of the tea time topics. And just in the interest of time, I thought I'd combine the two together. But I want to give my jester of the week to Yuta Watanabe. Because many of the fans probably saw Kevin Hart posted on Instagram a photo of this of the jam of this dunk that Anthony Edwards, rookie from the Timberwolves, made over Yuta Watanabe, and Kevin Hart posted a photo of that along with what was written the caption as "What the f did this guy?" meaning Utah, do to deserve this? Holy S bat, man. How can you dunk on somebody like that without a crowd in the arena? What's your motivation for this type of hate? So thank you to Utah for making us laugh and for defending, for being such a great player. So that he's my court jester of the week.
That's an excellent choice. Oh my gosh, what a monster slam by Anthony Edwards. That was unbelievable. If you haven't seen it yet, y'all got to Google it. Man, Twitter was afire with people wondering, oh my God, can somebody check on Utah? Is he okay?
Actually, is he alive?
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, good choice. Good choice. Allison, who do you pick?
Well, I was considerably less generous than Sonali. I went for the jugular here. I went with Matt Thomas. So he was our 3-point specialist, and I'm going to bring this full circle because as a long-standing Raptors fan, I have a lot of insecurity. So against Minnesota, he was 0 from 3 for 3, and against the Bucks, he was 1 for 4 from 3. So that's 1 for 7 from 3. So, and I was thinking, okay, he's our 3-point specialist, and he can't seem to get around screens to get a shot off. And it brought me back to Jason Capono. I don't know if you guys remember Jason Capono. he he played for the Raptors 2007 to 2009, and he was brought in as a 3-point specialist. And I didn't have time to look up his career numbers with Toronto, but he was not as advertised. And having lived through all those bad years of the Raptors, every time I hear the word 3-point specialist, it kind of sets me off. So yeah, I gave Joker of the Week to Matt Thomas.
You know what? That's also fair. And let's be honest, Chris Boucher is our actual 3-point specialist.
Yes.
So what?
And maybe Freddie Van Vliet after tonight.
Absolutely. So, it's a fair comment. Okay. Sonali, related to yours, I'm giving it to DeAndre Bembry for setting Utah up to be posterized. So DeAndre Bembry gambled on this steal on the pass to Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards just drives baseline. God, he jumped high and just demolished Utah. So yeah, I'm giving it to DeAndre Bembry. Way to set your teammate up like that.
His head was at the rim, Edwards. He was up there.
Oh yeah, I looked at that photo 100 times and I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, that is an outstanding dunk. Okay, thanks, ladies. Moving on to our next one, tea time. Do y'all know that in the game against Milwaukee, Shaq didn't know Pascal's name?
Yes. Oh. I don't know if you guys actually heard the actual conversation where what's the other guy's name? EJ. He was like, "Hey, you got your eyes on Pascal?" And then Shaq goes, "Nah, I got my eyes on Siakam."
Oh, oof. That was bad.
We're like, yeah, Pascal Siakam. I don't know his first name.
I just don't see Shaq as relevant anymore.
Yeah, he's become like the okay boomer, like the dad of the.
Yeah, like he's a caricature of himself.
Yeah, it was a thing. Anyway, moving on from that, Sonali, tell us about the little bromances happening with the Raptors.
Yeah, so there was a really cute article in the Toronto Star I think it was this weekend. It was the last couple of days anyways. But it was just sort of talking about the friendship between Freddie Van Vliet and Norman Powell and just how close they are. And yeah, it was just a nice light little piece talking about how they both have not just similar work ethics, but also are politically aligned. And if we sort of look back at when the whole Black Lives Matter sort of movement was happening last year, and just how these two were really championing the voices of the Raptors and sort of were key players in terms of social change for the team and to address issues at a global level. So it was just really nice to see that. And yeah, and now I think I mentioned that little conversation with Steve Kerr about Freddie Van Vliet's baby. I think a couple of weeks after that, or not a couple of weeks, but late last year in November, I think there was a photo circulating it was trending on Twitter and on the internet of Norman holding Freddie's, I don't know if it was his son or his daughter, but it also, there was this theory around the internet that anybody that holds Freddie's baby, their career just goes off, because after that, Norman was shooting 20 points a game and just doing so fantastic. So it's really cute. And I just imagine them now. I imagine Norman's two dogs and the kids playing, although it is the pandemic, but post-pandemic. So yeah, it was really cute. But in terms of other tea, so on a more somber note, I think it's really important that we we honor the life of DeMar DeRozan, former Raptors player's father, who passed away last Wednesday. Now, I'm not quite sure what he passed away of, but it sounds like he was suffering from several different illnesses. So our hearts go out to Damar and Damar's family, and yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that as well too.
Absolutely. Thank you. And on another news update, the lawsuit against Masai from Alan Strickland, the security guard that pushed him, has been dropped by Alan Strickland, which is good. Yes. And in response, Masai also decided to drop his countersuit against Alan Strickland, which is probably the practical thing to do. There was the judge in the court case at one point, like at one of the intermediary hearings, or maybe it was an application for something. Anyway, just said, how come you guys haven't settled yet? This case should clearly be settled. And I remember thinking, if I was Masai, there's absolutely no way I would settle this case. Absolutely not. I would take it the whole way through unless this guy dropped his countersuit. I'm really glad that that's what happened.
Vindication. Yeah.
There were some comments that I saw. I read the Athletic article about this, and one of the comments that got a lot of likes was that it's unfortunate that Masai didn't pursue this guy to, his maximum ability and just make this guy a poor man and put him on the streets, because this is just incredible abuse of power. And this is the same thing that's been happening for 30, many hundreds of years, but we didn't have cell phones back then, right? So he got caught. This is the only difference. So there's really no fate that's too bad for this guy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it's settled. I'm sure that Masai is happy to have the whole thing dropped as well, and just big weight off his shoulders, I'm certain. And yeah, so yeah, that's tea this week. Moving on from there, we have the All-Star game. Really quickly, here's what's going on. The All-Star starters have been announced in the Western Conference. LeBron James is the captain. Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and Kawhi Leonard are joining him as starters. And in the Eastern Conference, Kevin Durant, Giannis, Joel Embiid, Bradley Beal, and Kyrie Irving. So those are the NBA All-Star Game starters. The Raptors don't have a starter on the team, and what is left is for the coaches basically to vote who they're going to, select for the rest of the team. Ladies, do you think that any Raptors is going to make the team?
Oh, that's a hard one. It's with the Raptors record right now and the way things are looking up, it's kind of hard to ignore. And I think traditionally, like if teams are doing well, they're likely to get a player. So, I mean, I'm kind of hoping Fred, I think he's the best chance. I was kind of hoping Kyle would get a look just as a legacy move, but he hasn't really put up the numbers. So I hope Fred gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to also put out the feelers for Fred as well, too.
Okay. Yeah, I think Fred probably is the one that has the best chance. He was 9th overall in fan voting. So, yeah, the top Raptor in voting. So we'll see what happens. Are you guys excited? Are you going to watch it?
Oh, yeah. March 7th. I'm here for it.
Allison?
I'm going to watch it, but I have the same attitude as the players. Like, I'm not even sure why they're doing this. Like, I'm sure there's incentives built into contracts with regard to making an all-star team, but they can still have an all-star team without having a game. Like, there's so much risk with travel, and it just doesn't seem necessary. And the players seem pretty cool on the idea too. So it seemed sort of a bad look, but it is a business, and I guess it's about money.
Yeah. They're playing in Atlanta, right? I think that's where. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And also like last year was such a different year because of the tribute to Kobe and also not being in a pandemic. But yeah. I mean, I'm bored, so I'm still gonna watch it. So
Okay, well, let's see how it goes. And before that game actually happens, we've got 6 more Raptors game before the All-Star break. The next 3 are happening this week. 76ers on Tuesday, the Heat on Wednesday, and then the new James Harden-less Rockets on Friday. So let's get predictions. Allison, what do you predict?
So, for the sake of brevity, I'm going to say a loss against Philly, a loss against Miami, a win against Houston.
Okay, thanks for your pessimism. Sonali, what do you think?
I think we're gonna win against Philly. I think we're gonna have a loss against Miami, and I think we're gonna win against the other team. What was it again? Sorry.
The
Houston.
Rockets.
I'm like the hardenless team. Yes.
Sarah, can I predict your predictions, or would that be like redundant?
Ooh, yeah.
No, I'm
That's
kidding.
right. Go for it.
Lay it on us.
Oh, okay. Well, I absolutely think we're going to beat the 76ers again. Absolutely. Nick Nurse is going to outcoach Doc Rivers every time. Just forget it. Just forget it. And the Raptors are not going to win against the Heat. Ugh, I don't know why we don't match up well against them. And the Raptors will win against the Rockets. That's my prediction.
Man, the Heat's record right now to this point, what's going on with them? This is a crazy year in the league.
It's a very odd year. Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt.
Absolutely.
But the Raptors still don't match up well against the Heat, and they still don't match up well against the Celtics. And until that changes, I think that's the biggest hurdle out of the East. Not the Nets, not the Bucks, and not the 76ers. So
I agree.